Hi, everybody. This is a special House Medium episode. I have a very special guest that I'm very excited about. You have seen her on 90 Day Fiancé. She is a witch, she's an astrologer, she is a tarot reader, she's all the magical things. This is Ashley Michelle. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So, I have so many questions for you. So, first of all, watching you as somebody who's been in this because I'm older than her, for some time, a lot older than her. And I have seen people on, TV shows and who are in our, world, in our witchy psychic world. And
Hmm.
you were like ballsy as all.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe it's because I'm a Leo too. Maybe it's because we're fellow Leos. I don't know, but how did you feel about just putting yourself out there like that? Because we know how it can be, the back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm a Sagittarius.
Oh, okay.
So,
I thought you were a
yes.
Leo. Why did
Yeah.
I think you were Leo? Did I get
Some
that
people have
wrong?
been thinking that. I
Oh,
think the
my
reason
bad.
why is because I posted something some months back about an astrological event,
Oh,
and it
okay.
was within the sign of Leo. And because I put myself out there, there's so many new people coming into my universe that know nothing
Mm,
about astrology. So a lot
yes.
of those people were assuming that I was saying that I was a Leo because I think like Venus went into Leo or something like that. I was talking
Okay.
about that. And I noticed the comments. People are like, fellow Leo, fellow Leo, fellow Leo. And I'm
That's
like,
me.
bless your heart, guys. Bless your
That's
heart.
me.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But so that might have been why. If you skimmed it briefly, you probably would have thought I was a Leo.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
honestly, it's probably why I liked you because I don't
Yeah.
tend to like my fellow Leos as much. But
Ah,
I was like, because it's a hit and miss to me with Leos.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But yeah, so I'm a Sagittarius. But yeah, ballsy is a good word. I think Sages are naturally ballsy.
mhm,
And, like you said, our world is so niched. And I have had the pleasure
yeah,
and honor of sitting in rooms with such powerful, amazing people. And I believe in my soul work, right? And so when given this opportunity to bring this really beautiful, healing, personal development style of work to a mainstream audience, it more so felt like a duty. I identify as
mm,
star seed, and I do believe that we're in what I've been dubbing a spiritual awakening, a spiritual revolution, if you will.
mhm,
And more muggles are looking for our work and they
it's
want
true.
to know more. And I was just thinking about representation and being in the broom closet for so long and having to hide my tarot cards. And if there were
Mhm,
somebody who, was the token weirdo coming out on the like mainstream platforms,
mhm,
it would allow me the permission to do the same. So, it wasn't a question. There were definitely times where I was like, are they gonna make my work look silly? Are they gonna make
right.
fun of me?
Mhm,
Are they going to, because you obviously don't have control over the edit. Are they
mhm,
gonna edit something odd? And I had a conversation with God, and Spirit literally said, let the work tell its story. Like those are that are there for you, that are meant for you, are going to find you no matter what the matrix thinks that they can do. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Like your people will always find you. But
Mhm.
I feel like you did present it in a very authentic way because as
Yeah.
somebody who has seen a lot of this and definitely, grew up I'm here in LA and know what
Mhm.
they can do to people who do what we
Yeah.
do and
Yeah.
turn us into clowns and things. I
Right,
feel like
right.
you really like pushed forward like this is
Mhm.
what I do. This is how I'm going
Mhm.
to do it.
Mhm.
But I feel like I guess I wanted to know was there any did you feel like you got any backlash from it, or did it feel like people embraced it more than the other?
Well, I mean, of course I got backlash.
Right.
We live in a world of duality, right? As above, so
Yeah.
below.
Yeah.
So I've gotten backlash for almost everything I've done on television, and I've
Yeah.
gotten love for almost everything I've done on television. I knew entering into this very matrixy type world that I was going to receive both because of the nature of Earth School, right? And
Mhm.
there's going to be people that, are putting the evil eye on me and that are jealous and that want to like be mean or crude or rude because of
Mhm.
their own insecurities. There's people that don't understand this work and that are so stuck in their box that they're not in a space to allow for the expansion quite yet. And
Yeah.
then there's people who have been practicing magic and brujeria and working with their tarot for so fucking long that are just like, thank you so much for putting our work out in the public platform. There are other mystics who have something to say, like, oh, you read the King of Wands this way, and that's not what the King
Oh,
of
that's
Wands meant.
always the case.
Always the case,
Always
but
the case.
they
Yeah.
also don't understand an edit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not what I said about the King of Wands, but they
Mhm.
ad-libbed or edited something else because it fit their narrative. When it comes to TV and television, that's exactly what's happening. You're making television. So
Right.
when you decide to step into that arena, all you can do is be as authentic as you can and understand your why for doing this work while simultaneously making a great show. It's a fine line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very well said, and it's really
Mhm.
smart because I feel like it's not easy to kind of, walk
Mhm.
those 2 worlds, to realize that
Right.
you're creating
It's
a
not.
show, but
Mhm.
you are gonna put out information and be your
Right.
true self.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
hard, and people don't
Mhm.
realize how hard it is. It's
No.
brutally hard. A
Mhm,
lot of people can't
mhm.
do it, and they don't wanna do it.
No.
So, you're kinda putting yourself out there going, "Okay, I'm gonna do it,
Yeah,
and if the right people find me, then they will."
exactly. And
Yeah.
let the work speak for itself. I've been in business since 2019, so I had already developed that confidence code, that bone of not being shaken by
Mhm.
anyone who wants to critique my work, by anyone who says that I'm fake, by anyone who says that I'm wrong. That's infallible. I've worked with thousands of individuals at this point. I have the strongest relationship with spirit, God, source, universe that I've ever had in my entire life. And I grew up religious. So, Bob on Twitter can suck a dick. I'm not worried about you, Bob. I'm not, I don't
I
care, Bob.
love that so much. I love it, like, I love it so much. I've been doing this over 20 years
Yeah,
professionally,
yeah.
and when I
Mhm.
started, people were like, "You're crazy, you're,"
Hell
and when I
yeah.
came out of the broom closet, it was hard because
Mhm.
this was the early 2000s, so people
Yep, the
were
early 2000s is a hard time, yeah.
it was very difficult, and so
Isn't it
I
crazy that we speak about the early 2000s and it was 24 years ago?
I I'm in
It's
denial about all
nuts.
of it. Yeah,
It's nuts.
yeah, it's crazy. I was like, "How long ago was," I was, like, asking that
Right.
about something else. Yeah, for sure.
Oh my
Like,
god.
and, but I feel like it's definitely progressed, and it takes someone
Mhm.
like you, the
Mhm.
way you've handled it, because I can, obviously I'm a reader, so I can
Yeah.
read your energy. So I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, she's coming out this, like," I believe in, like, I always say to people, you can't care if people like you,
No, you
but
can't.
you
It's
make people
people
respect
liking
you.
you. Exactly. And people liking you or not liking you is none of our business, right? Like we're here
Mhm.
to do the work. I'm a firm believer
Right.
that mystics, healers, practitioners, shamans, witches, all of us, we're here to do God's work. I firmly believe that. I'm not saying that there isn't dark magic. I'm not speaking on that. I'm speaking on the
Mhm.
beautiful personal development work that we do inside of these spaces. And so I'm not here for everybody. I'm not gonna be everybody's cup of tea, nor do I want to be. Can you imagine the energetic expense that would be to
Right.
be in service to every human being?
Yeah. Yeah.
All hands on
Well,
deck.
yeah, well, then you would actually be a cult leader then.
Right,
If you
yeah,
were to,
actually, yeah, yeah, very good point, exactly.
because you
And
would
we
be
don't
like,
want that. We don't want
we
that. No
don't want
cults
that.
here.
We're afraid of the cult people.
Mhm.
They can have their thing, but yeah, I absolutely feel like it does come across. At least anybody who's coming from an authentic place is
Yeah.
going to see that you're coming across like, this is what I do, this is who I
Mhm.
am. You're just like, this is who I am, this is what I do.
Yeah.
So, my question to you, my next question is, you mentioned your childhood, because this is
Mhm.
always like a very, like, the people I work with, I know you work with baby witches and you mentor
Mhm.
people all along in all different types of ways. But one thing I find in readings and other things I do is people's getting past their childhood stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
religion or whatever else.
Mhm.
How was that for you? Like, how did you discover all these things about yourself? How was your spiritual journey from coming
Yeah.
up and stuff?
Well, I've always kind of been a rebel child, so I'll start there. God bless my parents. I grew up a Jehovah's Witness on my mom's side, and my
Mm,
dad was, regular Christian, whatever that means, going to church every Sunday.
hmm
So we definitely grew up with the Bible in our house, and I was definitely a devout Jehovah's Witness, knocking on doors, whole thing. I still have a New World
mm,
Translation in my house.
wow.
So I've always had a very strong relationship with spirit, God, source, universe, always.
hmm
Um, Around 14ish, that rebel age, was when I started to ask more questions and I started to become more inquisitive about the world around me and different ways to God and different religions and things of that
hmm
nature. So I started reading Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, and
Oh
that kind
yeah.
of opened up the
hmm
doors. Started listening to Prince, just really starting to get into my spiritual side. The Tao Te Ching came shortly after that, and just started reading. I read a lot. And then I decided to go to college for biology. And there I was exposed to a lot of atheist and agnostic and by that time, I was very deep into astrology, very deep into tarot. I got my first tarot deck when I was 17.
Okay.
So, coming into college, a very hard science school, my undergrad is in conservation biology. We had a lot of conversations around the hard sciences and around spirituality, around astrology and the realness of it. And at that same time, I had begun to travel outside of the US and having these very visceral spiritual experiences with Pachamama and like, hiking in the Amazon barefoot and, hearing the trees breathe and all of this stuff. And my world kind of came together. And
Okay.
then after college, came home, got into the service industry, which will chew
hmm
you up and spit you out if you
Oh
know
yeah, I've done it.
bartending,
Yes,
serving.
I
Yeah.
bartended. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
understand. I've done all those things.
Exactly. It's a lot of fun, but you can get lost really quickly. And that
hmm
was that was a part of my story. So I kind of played around in that world for way too long. Then of course my Saturn return came through and that come to Jesus moment came on and was like, what the fuck are you doing, girl? Do you really
Right.
want to just like be hanging out until 6 or 7 a.m., getting drunk and doing illegal activities with people for the rest of your life? Like, like you're more is meant for you. And
Right.
shortly after that, I got back into my tarot decks and I started seeing this online world start to flourish, and
hmm
readers online. And I'm like, wait a second, they're doing something that I've been doing for a long time. This is a whole thing on Instagram and stuff like that. And
Right.
so I got my master's degree. And inside of that program, I looked in the world of entrepreneurship, which was never even on my radar to begin
Oh
with
wow.
at
Okay.
all, at all. And so I everything kind of came together, which is what happens during a Saturn return, right?
hmm
You allow things to come together
Right.
and you allow Saturn to do her work and she does. And so slowly but surely Starseed Shadows was born and here we are.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of sounds like the typical of people in who do this work. You always have to go through the rough and tough,
Mhm.
and even your background, religious background. You were raised Jehovah Witness. I was raised Seventh Day Adventist. It's a
I
very
am.
kind of weird
Mhm.
religion as well, with all these sectors to it.
Yep.
But I feel like it does push you, if you're this type of person, to ask those
Mhm.
questions if you're
Yeah.
restricted
I
and oppressed.
agree.
hmm
That's why, like, people talk a lot about the Kingdom Hall and the Jehovah's Witness community. I can only speak to my experience inside of it, and I regret nothing because those
Mm,
sorts of niche religions, I do think foster a healthy conversation around religion versus, Catholicism where it's like you just kind of do it because you've been doing it and that's how you do it or certain sects of Christianity that are more
mhm.
mainstream if you will that are more
Right.
accepted
That's
there's less
true.
there's less
Right. That's a
questioning
good point. I
you
haven't thought
know
of that. It's gonna
yeah
make me look at my SCA days a little
Mhm.
bit differently. That's a good point
100%.
because Catholic is more mainstream, so everybody kind of
Everybody
pushes you
knows
more.
it.
Right. That's a good
There's less
point.
things to question, whereas,
Yeah.
again, these niche religions, they're you have questions.
Yeah.
I remember being quite young, questioning, "Why don't we do this? Why did we do that? Why don't we do this? Why did we do that? Why is this
Mhm.
accepted? Why is that not accepted? What's happening? What's an elder?" Trying to
Right.
really understand that. And I think that kind of catapulted my soul work. I think growing
Mhm.
like everything, in my personal opinion, I don't want to say it's fated because we have free will, but I do think when I incarnated here, I decided to experience God, my first impression of God through that establishment, which really fostered my continued relationship with God, Spirit, Source, Universe.
Yeah. It's a really interesting way. It's a different take. I've never heard anybody take that take on it about
Yeah.
coming from these like offshoot weird religions.
Mhm.
You're right.
Mhm.
I never thought because I did have this revelation because I go to Utah and do a lot of readings. There's
Yeah.
all the Mormons and ex-Mormons,
Right, right.
and they live in a world where it's all like the state's run by Mormons, so they can't escape
Mhm.
it. When I left the church,
Mhm.
nobody cared. I'm in LA.
Yeah.
There was nobody going, "Are you going to go to your SDA church
Yeah.
today or on
Yeah.
Saturday on a weird day?" So you're right. That totally makes sense that it does kind of leave
Mhm.
you to question things more. That kind of leads into on the show, you go into a Catholic church and you have to
Mhm.
kind of, and that was your first time. I know for me, I've only been in a Catholic church once, and it
Mhm.
was very different. How did you
Mhm.
feel like having to come out to your husband's family? Because I was like, my heart was like with you at that time. I was like, okay, I know this can't be easy because I just know
Yeah.
being in settings like that in general, it doesn't even have to be that. It could just be
Yeah.
like at a party or anything where people
Anything.
ask you what you do, you know?
Well, it's a muscle that you build, right? And this is
Yeah.
something that I love to mentor and coach on,
Hmm.
because it's often the hardest in the beginning. And
Right.
I think there's a few pieces to it. Getting enough readings and practice and relationships under your belt so that you feel
Hmm.
confident in your soul work. Because if there's any sort of imposter syndrome, that's going to show up, right? And
Yes.
so you
Correct.
got to be practicing what you preach and also developing community around you. Like, have witch friends, like
Hmm.
hang out with these folks because then you don't feel so ostracized and so abnormal when you can get on the phone and have a conversation with your friend about how you channeled Metatron that morning. Like
Right.
there's power. There's power in that, and being able to do that.
Hmm.
And there's a normalcy that you want to add to it. And there's also verbiage. There's a way to say things to the
Hmm.
muggles. And I refer to them as muggles because it's like, there is a way to say things that makes it more palatable for somebody. Like when I was
Right.
talking about the expansion earlier, you can't
Hmm.
force somebody into expansion. They have to want to be able to expand. They,
Exactly. That's
you can't
facts.
force
Right.
them. So, going to the Catholic Church, I think first of all was something I needed to do because my husband's Catholic, right?
Hmm.
And I said this on the show, I don't know if it made it or not, but the Catholics are very mystical. I won't go as far as calling them witches, but I think some people
But I use the same type of, I'm using this,
smoke,
I'm
herbs,
using this.
all of it. That
Very
exactly.
similar to what they use in the church, the
It's
smoke and
very
frankincense,
ritualistic.
myrrh. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think when mainstream religion starts to recognize and honor that, like, they only had a seat at the table after us, I think us as a collective are
Hmm.
going to be a lot better when it comes to spreading more love and less hate and more acceptance and less, vilifying individuals that, choose to walk the road less traveled.
Right.
As far as coming out to Manuel's family, it was like coming out to my own, just, taking my time and explaining to them, I know what you think I do, but let me explain to you what
That's a
I
good one.
actually do,
That's
you
really good.
know?
Yeah.
Because I mean, mainstream culture hasn't really done us much favors. Anytime you see a witch in mainstream culture, they're green, they're evil, pointy noses, causing hexes. Anytime you see tarot in mainstream culture, it's always something ominous and gloomy and dog and
Right.
depressing and,
Or
you
just
know,
cheesy and saying
cheesy.
dumb things, or like that movie, The Tarot,
The
which was
tarot,
the
yeah.
dumbest fucking idea.
Seriously.
Like evil, like
The
it's
tarot
like
cards
it's
come to
just
life.
really come on. Yeah. So this is
It's,
the I
yeah.
say this. I literally even posted this today. It's the media does not help with scaring everybody
No.
away from
Right.
opening their minds for sure.
Right. And that's another reason too why I wanted to do something so big, to just kind
Yeah.
of show how multifaceted and multidimensional we are. You know, you can be you can be an education, an educated person, and still read tarot. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? There are so many layers to the work that we do. You know, we're not just one thing. And I just think representation is so fundamentally important, especially in 2024.
Well, I feel like what you said just makes is a really good way to say to somebody, you're not, I'm not what you think. Like you already know, because especially
Yeah.
because you were raised in a church in
Mm-hmm.
a religious atmosphere. I've said that to people. So I know what you're thinking it because I've never said it the way you said it, but I've said I know your world. So
Yeah.
I feel like your way of saying it kind of probably would stop people in their tracks because you're calling them
Mhm.
out in a very
Mhm.
kind of not aggressive way, just in a
Mhm.
very like, yeah, I get what
Direct way,
you're in
yeah.
a direct way. And it kind of cuts
Mhm.
to my question to you is as somebody, I don't know if you have found this, but somebody who's been in this world, I have found you mentioned like find other witches, find other practitioners and stuff. Do you find that it's very competitive as I have found it to be a competitive world, or do you find it not competitive? Because you sound like you found a more
Yeah.
embracing community.
Right, right, right. So I always say in the age of Aquarius, it's collaboration, not competition.
Nice.
And maybe because I say that, I have found myself in spaces where we aren't being competitive.
Okay.
Now, on the flip side to that, I think there is something to be said on social media and
Mm-hmm.
on, the term comparison is the thief of joy, and the coaching industry as a whole, not just mystical.
Right.
When you are online and you're seeing somebody brag about their six-figure launch and all of that stuff, the way that I teach and the way that I mentor on those arenas is, first off, it's the internet. So you must be very careful. Somebody that's bragging about a six-figure launch, it could be a full-on lie. That could be their marketing tactic, which unfortunately, friends, that is a marketing tactic to
Very
market
much.
to the money, market to
Yep.
the money.
Listen to her, everybody, because
Yeah,
yes.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
marketing tactic. It's not always real, number one. At number
Mm-hmm.
two, they're not telling you how much they spent in that launch. They're not telling you how much they had to pay their people in that launch. They're not telling you how many
Mm-hmm.
people may have signed on monthly for monthly payments in that launch. So what could be a six-figure launch might not even be that big after, like, when you look at the net, right? To put like my business hat on for a second,
Right.
I do think that when you're starting out as a mystic and you make that decision that you want to go professional, it can be a scary world that can look quite competitive. And
Mm-hmm.
also, too, to where we are, you are in LA, where everybody there is trying to do their big one, if you will.
Yeah, let
So
me
I'm
tell
not,
you, girl.
yeah,
I have more
you
knives in my
know,
back in this
right.
community in LA than I have other
Hmm.
things in my life that I've done, unfortunately.
I'll bet. I mean, it's the nature, right, of where we
Right.
are geographically.
Yeah.
In upstate New York, I have been very lucky in that sense where
Mm,
everybody's just trying to connect and meet people like them.
nice.
Versus in LA is a breeding pool for that sort of energy, no matter
Yeah,
what you're trying to do. It's
exactly.
the story of LA.
Yeah.
Everybody has like an energetic frequency or signature. It's not bad nor good. It just is what it is.
Mhm.
Um, Unfortunately, it's the world we live in. And so, what I always try to say too is like, when the head honchos of Instagram, like the billionaires, when they are doing their monthly roundup and they're looking at engagement on their platform, the spiritual community is a dot. We are this tiny little dot
Yep.
amongst the sea of
Right.
creators. And so, with that being said, I personally feel like there's always room at the table for another tarot reader, for another Akashic Records reader, for another mentor, because again, not everybody is going to fuck with everybody. There are people in this world that directly need your magic, and there are people in this world that directly need my magic. And that is the beauty of the
Absolutely.
work,
Yeah. I don't understand
So,
why people don't understand that. Like what I
yeah.
do is not it may not be like
And we're both
uh,
readers. It
yeah,
just
yeah, I
people are going to
right.
need who they need, right?
Yeah, I don't understand why people don't. I've always said this. I said, I don't do, we don't all have to do the same thing. We don't all
Right.
operate the same way. It's
Mhm.
totally fine. We could just pump each other. So I'm
Right.
glad that you're having an awesome experience. That
I mean,
makes me
right
happy.
now, I mean, it's a beautiful experience, but like I wouldn't be fully honest if I didn't tell you that, like, I don't do protection work. I do protection work,
Oh, oh yeah.
especially, like, being on such a big public platform. I know people have the evil eye out on me. I know more people are watching
Yes.
what I do, and it's also, like, a
Right.
probability thing too, right? When you have a following of 200 people versus 20,000 people, it's
Mhm.
probability. There are gonna be people that are following you just to watch you fail, but
That's right.
you need to like take that energy and transmute that energy into something bigger, brighter, more, because I
Return to
mean, why
sender.
not return to
Yeah.
sender? Exactly. Why not? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that because I was like that was one of my questions because I know
mhm,
anything I do or any time you put yourself out there, you gotta put that protection and
yeah.
put that energy back. And, I was gonna ask you if that's something you did probably
Um,
on the
oh
reg,
my God. Yeah.
doing
I,
that, like
yeah.
filming and stuff. Yeah. Even
Yeah.
the people just around you,
Hmm.
you have that you're interacting with in that type of setting, you have to put that protective energy. Because I could see when you're doing it, even in your body, because I know the
Yeah.
energy that you're putting
Hmm.
off, you
Hmm.
have to. There's no way it would affect you too much.
Yeah, it is wild how people move around TV and cameras. I found that to be really
Mhm.
interesting.
Oh, interesting.
I found that to be
Yeah.
really interesting. But yeah, I have my own mystics that I work with. I always do
Mhm.
protection work before any interviews, any tell-alls, any reunions.
Mhm.
There's a stone in my bag at all times. Before anybody comes into my home to film, the home gets
Right.
protected. Heavy, heavy,
Good.
heavy protection work. Heavy protection
Yeah.
work, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So let's go through what you do so everybody
Yeah.
can hear all of your things. I know you do astrology. I
Mhm,
know you do tarot.
mhm.
Um, to start you off on what I know you that I'm not I know the basics of astrology as knowing astrologers obviously in this world that I'm in. So I'm not an expert. I'm an intuitive and a medium. I stick to my lane. So one of my followers is like, Adela, what can we do about Lionsgate and all this? I'm like, I that's not my realm, but I
Yeah,
wanted to ask you about it because
yeah.
that's more your realm. What was
Mhm.
that? Some people wanted to know. Some people just don't know what it's about. They heard about it online, they heard it on TikTok, but they don't really know what it is. But can you
Yeah.
take us through what you do, and you can like give us an example, I guess, with this whole
Yeah,
Lionsgate thing.
yeah. So, I'm a tarot reader, an astrologer, an Akashic Records reader, and I am a mentor for baby mystics looking to build up their brand and their online presence. I run a
Nice.
school
Okay.
called Siren. It's an acronym. It stands for Sacred Initiation for Rebel Entrepreneurial Newbies. So
Okay.
it's actually open right now for enrollment. I take about 10 students and we build them up so that they can do what you and I do. And
Yeah.
what that sort of entails, magic and witchcraft through Harry is very feminine, and business building
Hmm.
is very masculine. And I found that folks that want to do this professionally don't realize the masculine component to it. Setting up your acuity, setting up your email marketing,
Hmm.
understanding the tone of what you're saying,
Yeah.
how to speak to your clients, how to build a diverse product suite, the stuff behind the curtain that a lot of folks don't see when they see that beautiful curated piece of content. I help people
Right.
do that. I also identify as star seed. So Lionsgate portal, it's a beautiful portal for expansion. It's in the 888 portal. Eight is the number of infinity, stands for infinity. In real time example, it is when Sirius, the star Sirius, they call it our second sun in our solar system, is aligned
Hmm.
with Earth. So you can see it. It's a great time for manifestation setting, and like, what do you want to last forever? This is kind of
Okay.
the conversations that I've been in and having with my followers and things like that. What are you building and what are you looking to build, and what sort of habits and behaviors are keeping you stagnant from building? You know, um, I like to make spirituality accessible. I
Yeah.
think, again, with the age of Aquarius and all of this content that we're consuming, when you look into the spiritual community on, TikTok and YouTube, all these platforms, some spiritual creators have, in my personal opinion, created this distance where
Mhm.
it's almost kind of like, I can't be in my magic unless I have 18 red candles, 3 black candles, some vervain over here, some
This
horehound.
right here,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like, I have to have
Mhm.
all of these things
Mhm.
in order to be considered mystical, magical, or
Right.
powerful, and it's
Mhm.
just not true. And
No.
so I always bring it back to the work. What is the simplest thing we can do on some of
Mhm.
these days, on Mabon, on the solstice, on the 888 portal, on just connecting with our guides? And the simplest thing you can do is just to fucking talk about it.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
you spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you desire to create in your life,
Mhm.
and what things are happening to prevent you from doing so? 888
Mhm.
portal. That's it. And then we go up
Okay.
from there. So if you have that down and you really want to work with the 888 portal, it is a fantastic time to channel those archangels, to channel Metatron, to channel the Archangel Gabriel, to channel your galactic team. It's an amazing time to get an Akashic Records reading. It's an amazing time to do a past life regression. These portals are essentially invitations because the veil is lower. Halloween is a portal, right? The veil is lower. And so we are able to connect with that third eye, higher crown energy with a bit less resistance, is really what I like to say. So, whatever your lane is, it's a great time
Mhm.
to expand in your lane, is how I like to
Okay.
explain those sorts of
Okay.
spaces and
Okay.
places and all of that.
And when you read tarot, like how what is your method of reading? Because I know everybody has a
A
different
different one.
way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because
I'm a
everyone
very,
assumes
yeah.
everyone reads the same, but they don't. So
No, no, they
yeah.
don't. I'm a very intuitive reader. So whenever I have a
Mhm.
client, like that morning when I check my calendar, I see who's on it and I
Mhm.
let the deck choose me. So whatever that
Okay.
client needs, sometimes the
Nice.
client needs tarot and oracle. Sometimes the client needs one of my darker decks. Sometimes the client needs one of my lighter decks. It just depends. I shuffle. So like when the client comes on, I let them talk to me. As they're talking to me, I'll do 3 different piles and then I'll start shuffling them out and I pull intuitively until spirit tells me to stop. So sometimes it might be 3 at
Oh,
once
I
and then we
like that.
talk about it and then I
Okay.
might pull 4 or 5 more. Sometimes I don't use spreads anymore. I teach
Okay.
to spreads and I do think when you're starting out reading, spreads are very, very helpful. But I
Mhm.
also think spreads can sometimes box you in when you're an intuitive reader. Sometimes I'll double up decks.
Okay.
So I'll use 278 card decks, which is a pro tip for anybody's listening. If you're pulling from 278 card decks and you get the 7 of Pentacles twice, that
Mhm.
person really needs that energy. It's
Okay.
278 card decks.
Right,
It's a
right,
lot of
right,
decks. And so if you're
right.
literally pulling the 7 of Pentacles twice, which has happened on more than one occasion, where I have pulled multiples of the same card and I'm only pulling 10 cards out of 2 decks of 78. So,
Mhm.
that message needs to be really honed in for that querent, that client.
Right.
Sometimes, the bottom card wants to come out. So we'll pull the bottom card. If a card jumps out, we'll pull that card too. It's all very intuitive and very magical the way that I read.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's really cool. That means you're actually listening. You're not
Mm-hmm.
just like cuz a lot of people feel I always tell people there's a difference between people who learn tarot and
Yeah.
there's people who actually who are using their
Reading it.
gifts with it. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
you got to
Mm-hmm.
find a difference and this is an example everyone for the difference. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to go kind of just go back cuz I wanted to ask you about your witchcraft and
Mm-hmm.
your craft and what you do. So you touched on exactly I'm witchy obviously, but
Yeah.
because I don't follow all of the things like you just described,
Mm-hmm.
I think I always shy away from calling myself a witch even though other people do obviously all the
Yeah.
time. But because I use what candle I want, I do it on the day I want,
Mm-hmm.
if I feel drawn to it. So I feel like what you said is so important because people don't understand. Like a lot of people don't have the money to get all these things.
Right. Right.
I know people who don't live in places that even have these
Yeah.
things. So
Mhm.
they're like, what do I do? Or they're trying to hide it. They don't want their
Mhm.
families to know. So they don't want
Right.
it obvious. They don't want like a
Mhm.
black candle with
Right,
stuff all over
right,
it.
right.
So with your craft, are you have you ever joined a coven? Are you a solo practitioner? And
Mhm.
what kind of craft, and explain it for people who don't know, aren't familiar with all these types of craft
Yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah. So I would identify definitely more so as a solo practitioner.
Okay.
One of my projects in the future is to create a coven. Right
Mm,
now, we're in the process of deciding if we want to stay in upstate New York. So I think once I get more settled, I will
hmm.
definitely know what I need to do as far as creating a coven or not.
Okay.
Um, Now, as far as my actual craft goes, it really depends on the energy level. I'm a firm believer in doing things in our energy and in our power. Like first of all, we get into business so that we work for ourselves, so that we're not
Hmm.
bound by a specific time limit of clocking
Right.
in and clocking out. And number
Right.
two, our work is very energetic. Everything we do,
Hmm.
from recording this podcast to doing an email to everything we do is very
This.
energetic. Yeah. And so
Hmm.
I want to make sure that when I'm in communion or conversation with somebody, and I guess I misspoke, I do have a coven like online, but like in person coven.
Right. Right.
So, when I'm doing this work, I want to make sure that my energy is up and good to go. So whether I'm doing my own magic or whether I'm working with somebody else, it also depends on what's happening. So, like I said, I'm a Sagittarius sun. So if we have a moon phase, and my chart is moon ruled, Cancer rising. So working with the moon is something that's very important to me. Working with my bleed is something that is very important to me, or the non-working with my bleed. I always
Hmm.
like bring it back whenever my bleed is on. Um, it depends. Yeah, like eclipses, we have a
Hmm.
few eclipses coming up. I will be working magic there. I do believe you can work magic during the eclipse. It really depends on what's happening and what I need at that time. So, for example, Lionsgate for me personally was more of a reflective experience than a magical one. It was more of a like, okay, we're in Lionsgate portal. Where are we going? Where are we taking Starseed Shadows? Where are we taking this TV thing? Where are we taking my relationships? Where are we taking my
Hmm.
body image? It was more of a reflective of being internal.
Right.
Whereas, the Halloween, All Hallows Eve, that's going to be a very magical night for me where I'm going to be working my smoke and doing my smudging and probably creating some oils and all of that. It all is just kind of dependent on what I need at that time. And magic is intuitive. It's what I like to say. A lot of
Yeah.
people feel like they have to do something because everybody else is. When in
Right.
reality, you do what works for you, boo. And if
Hmm.
you don't feel like making your moon water, the witches aren't going to come for you because like, don't make your moon water, girl. You can still sit with us. It's okay.
Well,
You
I'm one of the
know.
I'm one of those
Mhm.
because when I would read in a in a metaphysical store,
Mhm.
I'm not as connected to the moon. Like I just don't
Yeah.
get as much. But my son pointed out one day, he kind of called me out. He's like, "I love the beach. I love the water," and
Yeah.
he's like, the beach is like, the water is." Yeah, he called me out. He was like,
Mhm.
"It's like reflected from the moon. The moon
Yeah.
controls it." He says, "So you
Mhm.
kind of are connected to
Yeah.
the moon through the water," and I was
What a
like,
wise soul.
"Oh, damn."
Yeah.
I was like,
That's
"Okay,
good.
okay." I had to, like, pause. I was like, "I've been saying this all this time that I'm more
Mhm.
connected to the sun." I always feel inspired by the sun,
Mhm.
but he's right. That is where I get kinda, and so I feel like that's what people need to understand is you follow
Right.
what works for you,
Mhm.
and, there I've had some witches come for me for not, you know, caring about the moon, but not in
That's
a
not
real
them
kinda way.
then.
That's
Yeah,
why I
that's
said
a
I'm
them
sorry.
thing.
Right, that's a good point.
Mhm.
That's a good point. My question to you is, if you were to, because some people wanna know this, if you were to put, so would you say you stay away from these titles of like I'm this type of craft, I'm hoodoo, I'm voodoo,
Mm.
I'm what's why is it coming out of Wiccan, are
Mhm.
you saying like this isn't, I don't need those titles then?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't need those titles, don't resonate with those titles, never have. Yeah.
Same. Okay.
Mm.
Okay, awesome. I just want everyone to be clear.
Yeah.
Well, because she's
It doesn't
this
mean I can't learn from them. I've got books on Wicca, I've got books on hoodoo, all of that,
mhm.
but I also
Right.
have books on the holographic universe, I've got books on
Right.
astral projection,
Yeah,
learn. I think
right.
that's how you come into your magic because you
Mhm.
learn how other people in the past, present, and future have come into theirs, and then you
Yeah.
find your own juice in the middle of all the noise,
Yes.
personally.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay. So my question to you is I'm moving into I saw you post something that I really like, which was connected to the Lionsgate thing. Mercury retrograde. I get a lot of shit because I feel like people jump on the negative train. They're always
Mhm.
saying everything's going bad because of Mercury retrograde. Everything's going
Right.
bad. And I say that's a collective conscious thing.
Yeah.
If everybody collectively is telling me everything, so I'll put like a protection around me going, in my world, I'm going to like create awesome change. And that's kind of what I saw you did. Is that what
Mhm.
you believe? I feel like you were, isn't that the true intention of Mercury retrograde?
Yeah, I mean, I do this every Mercury retrograde because you're right. The overtone, not even undertone, the overtone of Mercury
Hmm.
retrograde is negative. And, pop culture and TikTok hasn't really helped with that. So every
Right.
time there's a Mercury retrograde, I always am going to push out content around the purpose of it.
Good.
Retrogrades are POVs, they're points of interest, I should say, for us to fucking slow down. It's a retrograde, it's moving backwards. So, like, slow down. The way you think, the way you speak.
Right.
Speak with intention. What are you
Hmm.
actually thinking versus what you're actually saying? Same with Venus retrograde, Jupiter retrograde. You take the major themes of those planets and to apply it to your life, you slow that area down. For example, Venus is our creature of comfort, our planet of business and money and finances and all that, and beauty, right? So when you're in a Venus retrograde, maybe you do something nice for yourself. Maybe you go on a Sephora trip. Maybe you buy yourself that down comforter that you've been looking forward
Okay.
to getting. Maybe you do your budget. You reanalyze your monthly budget, right? These are the certain things or certain areas where you would want to be during retrogrades. But you know, we're fighting major beasts like TikTok. I hate to
Major.
hate. Yeah, I mean, I hate to hate on
I'm right.
TikTok,
I'm
but
right with you on that. A hundred
because
percent.
people
Yeah.
people post things for clickbait, and
Yep.
so saying that Mercury retrograde is horrific and horrible is going to give that creator more clickbait. So they
Right.
don't really give a fuck. They want the
No.
clicks. And so
Right.
that's again another reason why I chose to take my work mainstream, because
Okay.
either this baby witch can learn from this TikTok creator that's just trying to get paid, or they can
Mm-hmm.
really learn something of substance and value and create a magical fucking life,
Yes.
you know?
I love, love, love it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I 100%. This is absolutely right on point. Okay, so
Yay.
I love it because I feel like I've been out here like screaming
Eh,
into the void.
seriously. Yeah, into the motherfucking
Like
void, right? Yeah, girl.
I've
I
been
get
like, "Hey,"
it.
I'm like, "Hey, everybody, what the fuck? Like, why is it all negative,
Yeah.
negative? You guys are
Mhm.
going you're getting drawn to the things that are leading you down the wrong
And
path."
what you fear, you attract. Thought plus word plus action
Absolutely.
equals creation. And
Yes.
so it's
Mhm.
really about like this
Mhm.
negativity drives me up a wall. One huge
Yes.
lesson I've learned with this whole TV thing is that there's still so much work to be done. If the average human mindset is fucking negative AF, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the negative
Yeah.
self-talk,
Yeah.
the judgment that people place on other people.
Mhm.
Um, the collective needs help in that arena. And that's
Mhm.
why I think every fucking mystic that we can get that is ready to shout their work from the rooftop, let's do this, because the
Yes.
overall tone of the collective is a negative one. I hate to say it that way, but it is.
But it is. I mean, I'm a medium and which we, obviously, which means I'm talking to the dead all
Mhm,
the time.
mhm,
And I
mhm.
can't even fucking tell you how no one's like, what's the amazing thing? What's the
Yeah,
best thing? It's always like, what's
yeah.
the scariest thing? What's the most
Right,
awful
right,
thing?
right,
And
right.
and I
100%.
all the interviews or anybody who wants to know about it, and it's always dark, horrible,
Mhm,
terrible,
mhm.
demonic. That's what sells. People want
Right, that's what sells.
I
The
call it the sexy
drama.
sell, the drama.
The
exactly.
drama, you can't get away
Sexy
from it.
sell. Like if you're
Hmm.
kind of like, hey, this is going to help you, they're like, whatever. This will
Right.
destroy you. People are like,
Give me
oh,
some
tell me.
more. Drama, sex, and despair is
Hmm.
really what sells. And
Right.
it's a reflection on people's mindset because it's like people are like, "Oh yeah, do good, but don't do as good as me." And that
Right.
is what the problem is, you know?
Hmm.
And when you start doing better than other people, you really start to notice the demons. Um,
Yeah.
but all we have to just one foot in front of the other. Keep doing your soul work. Be true to you and keep your nose out of other people's business. And it's not my business what people are saying about me on Reddit. Like none of that matters. The work matters. The soul work matters. And I
Right.
think that's why so many people are afraid to come out of the broom closet because they don't want to be judged. But when
Oh,
you do
yes.
something big,
Hmm.
it's a part of your story. It's just a part of it.
Yeah. No, people are very afraid. That's the most what I hear is
Mhm,
they're
me too.
afraid of what people are gonna
Mhm.
say. And
Yeah,
I don't think people, I mean, you have to have a thick skin. Like
you do.
if you're gonna go public, like out
Mhm,
there, you have
mhm,
to have a thick skin. I just tell people, I'm
mhm.
like, you're gonna fucking respect me. You don't have to like
Yeah,
me,
you don't
but
have to
you
like
will
me.
fucking respect me.
Exactly, and you will respect this goddamn
And
work
this like
because it's
nice side
right.
you see, I have another side. I
Exactly.
have a
Yeah,
warrior side that
yeah.
you do not want her to come
Mhm.
out. So
100%.
and you have to have those
100%.
2 sides. Okay,
Mhm.
so I think it's fun because a lot of people don't know about it, and I love that you mentioned it on the show. You talked about sex magic for a minute, for a
Mhm.
second. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't understand what it is, so
Yeah.
I feel like we should educate people on the true essence of what it is because I
Yeah.
feel there's so much misinformation, especially on that, and it's always negative that if you're with the wrong person, if you're with somebody, like especially to women, like women are there was a trend of kind of pushing women to abstain almost because if you
Mm.
have sex at all, you're giving away all your energy to someone. And I
Mm.
was like, this is like really odd. This is not the kind of magic I've ever even like what are they talking about? It felt
Mhm.
very like oppressive, nothing, and that got popular for a while. So the
Mm.
true essence of sex magic, I think people don't know what it is. Can you explain it to people?
Yeah, I mean, it's manifestation, it's energy, right? When you
Hmm.
have sex, when you orgasm, you are releasing energy. I
Right,
don't necessarily feel like you're giving it. You and the person or people that you're sleeping with are in communion making energy together. And there's
right.
power in numbers, right? And
Hmm.
so sex magic at its core is just it's directing that energy into that which you desire and deserve. That's really what it is. And so when you want to make sexy time or incorporate sex magic, what are you looking to build on? What are you looking to work on? Do you and your partner want to buy a home, for example? Maybe while you guys are
Pulling
having
that shit
sex,
in. Hmm.
exactly, you start imagining what your house looks like while you're in the act of having sex, how much you paid for your house, what color is your house, how you decorated your house, where you guys are having sex the first time in your home. And maybe
Mm.
as you hit climax, you're signing the deed as you hit climax. Can you imagine how like powerful that is when you are in a space of orgasming with your partner and you're imagining yourself signing the fucking deed for your home? That
That
shit's coming
is
to
cool.
you.
I've never heard anybody describe it that way. I feel like, see, that's why I had a feeling you were
Hmm.
going to describe it in a way that can
Be tolerable
connect.
and yeah, connect to the everyday person because we want
Right.
to make spirituality accessible.
Accessible,
Yes.
exactly. That's
Hmm.
what I always
Hmm.
that's the whole actually, that was the whole point of this podcast.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why I
yeah.
started it. Because normally I have people, they write in their paranormal experiences, and I put
Hmm.
sound effects on it, but I have them on so I could tell them, "You know what? It was just grandma just trying
Yeah.
to help you out," or it's just, "This
Right.
guy's pissed off because he died here."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
always, like, so crazy. I
It's
mean,
not always
everything
so crazy. Exactly.
yeah, it's not always so crazy. Okay. So that's awesome. So everybody get going doing your sex
Mm-mm.
magic. All
Right.
right. Okay. So my question I wanted to ask you as we head down this path. So how did 90 Day change your life? I know besides your husband, how did it change your life to you for you?
Well, I've definitely developed thicker skin. I've seen more expansion in my business and my soul work. I've become more confident in my soul work. When you have a lot of eyes looking at you and looking on you, and you're
Mhm.
able to sit inside of the work, that's where the growth is. Um, Tons and tons of growth of just knowing what I can hold. It's quite a busy schedule. I'm
Yeah,
busier than I've ever been in my entire life.
I bet.
And I'm busy doing positive things. I could be busy visiting a family member at jail, or
Good
just,
point.
you know what I mean? I
Mhm.
like the busy that I am, and I've been able to touch and reach more souls, and obviously my partner. So it's changed it in a lot of ways.
Okay. And lastly, I have two more questions, and then we'll let her go and eat her lunch and such.
Mhm.
Um, my one of my questions is: I know you've been on a health journey.
Yeah,
I went on a health journey because I'm 50 something, and
you
and
look
I went
great.
through this change of life. Thank you. And I had to like change, like I lost a bunch of weight, and I had to do all the things, and then I gained a little bit of weight. So it's hard, but I feel there is a connection to your spirit, to your body, and if you have to do both. And I
Mhm.
kind of heard you talk about that, and I've seen you go through this like awesome journey. So can you talk a little bit about that? About
Yeah,
your journey and how you approached
yeah.
it from a spiritual and physical aspect?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm down over 110 pounds,
Wow,
and,
amazing.
thank you, thank you.
Naturally, by the
Yeah,
way, like you did
um,
it, yeah, on your
s
own.
so, I'm down over 110 pounds, and my whole thing is I just wanted to be the best version of myself as I
Mhm,
stepped into a marriage, and doing my soul work, all of that stuff. It just all was very, very, very important to me. Um, and so as far as the spiritual aspect goes, I think that I needed my relationship with spirit, God, source, universe to be a consistent one, to create consistency around my diet and the gym, and to really have the foundations of the shadow work to understand how I gained the weight in the first place. And I
yes.
think that's key. You have to understand how you ended up in a position or situation that you don't want to be in before
Mhm,
you can make permanent changes. Or
yeah,
else we do that back and forth. And we do
right.
that weird oscillation because the ego always goes back to what it knows. The
Mhm,
ego is a creature of comfort. And so we have to really get to the core of the why. um, and spiritual work is a great way to do that.
mhm,
The journaling, the reflection, the working with the tarot cards, the channeling, working with smoke and herb and dressing your candles, and really getting personal with yourself, can open up places and spaces inside of your mind and your
mhm,
soul that you haven't necessarily explored before, which is why like spiritual development is personal development. They're the same
right.
thing,
Yeah,
you know.
I agree. And I always say to people, if you're not going into the spirit part of you, because it does, if one is affecting the other, like how
Right.
you're carrying and what you're carrying on your body. Can you just real quick kind of clear for people, we have people who can be newbies. When you say the smoke work, just clarify what you're saying to people who may not know what
Oh,
you mean. 'Cause they
so
could be
like,
picturing all kinds of
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah. Like, so like burning incense, smoke
Right.
work, working with
Yeah.
activated charcoal, smoke
Yes.
work, any of that. Sage, Palo Santo,
Okay.
any of that. Dragon's blood, lavender
Mhm.
bundles, any of that stuff.
Okay, just wanted everybody to be clear what she's referring to.
Hmm.
Okay, so my last question to you is, can you give, I have a lot of baby witches, people new to coming out of like coming out get a lot of people coming out of different religions and stuff. Is there any do you have any like advice or anything, the last things you want to say and offer to people, or just kind of an insight as they're just kind of starting on that path?
Yeah. If you're called to this work, it's for a reason. That's my biggest piece of
Okay.
advice. You like if you're called to crystals, if you're called to herbs, there's a reason, or else you simply wouldn't be. And
Mhm.
I really hope people listening like let that sink in. You
Mhm.
just simply wouldn't be. Think
Right.
about the people that you know in your sphere that aren't into this work.
Mhm.
they're not going to those metaphysical shops, you know what I mean? And so I think there's something there for people to take note, like it's not going to go away. Some people are like, well, I've always
Yes.
felt drawn to this, but then I got
Mhm.
busy doing X, Y, and Z, and here I am 5 years later. It's never going to go away. And so my best piece of advice is to continue cultivating that, because you probably have some like gifts that need to be unlocked, and worked with. And also, I mean, join Siren, join my school. If you want to take your work professionally, invest in a mentor, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else. I'm a firm believer that you cannot do it alone. And the work of mentorship, especially in the spiritual arena, is truly priceless. And being able to have that connection is truly priceless. I have met some of my best mystical friends through group mentorship experiences and things of like that nature, and collaborators and people I can network with and talk to and do podcasts with. You never know how somebody's going to come into your life. And this soul work can be deep. It can be very
Yep.
deep. It can be very guttural. It can be very isolating. It can be
Yes.
all of those
Mhm.
things. And
Mhm.
again, it's the age of Aquarius. And what is Aquarius if not about banding together?
Okay, awesome. I love that, and I love actually I have a love for the sign of that Aquarius. I wonder, maybe that's
Mhm.
why.
I'm an
Maybe because
Aquarius moon. So, yeah.
oh, that's my favorite sign. I'm
It's
a
a fun
Pisces
one.
moon.
I love it.
Y- okay, so let everybody know all the things
Yeah.
where they could follow you, where
hmm
they can like get to your work and what
Yeah,
you
yeah,
do
yeah.
and all the things.
So my business name is Star Seed Shadows. So you can go to starseedshadows.com to book a reading to see my offers, any of that. It's Ashley Michelle 90 Day on Instagram and TikTok. And then on the YouTube, Ashley Michelle Starseed Shadows. And I also have a podcast called the Goddess Complex Podcast. We drop episodes every Thursday.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Ashley. Thank you for being cool and coming on. I so
Of
appreciate it. I'm gonna let you
course.
go eat.
I
and
appreciate it.
this has been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. That was an awesome episode. I knew she was going to be awesome. I knew she was going to get it straight to the point. I feel like her take on witchcraft, her take on how to approach the tarot is very, very much in line to what I believe in. I love the fact that I've been in this world for so long and I'm starting to see people like her on the representation out there in the world, trying to bring attention to this in a way that's obtainable to everyone. And that's what she talked about. She talked about bringing this more obtainable so people can have this in their life, being bold enough to put yourself out there even if there's scrutiny, because you're always going to have scrutiny. I loved all of her takes on this. She has different things that she does that I do, and that's kind of the point. She has different things that she does that other people do. I have different things that I do from. I mean, this is the problem: is that a lot of practitioners, we all get kind of thrown into the same box, and we're all looked at in the same way. When we're not, we're actually all coming from a very different point of view. We may have the same type of world we're in, but I love the fact that she's bringing up that this is a time that we have to start looking forward in a more progressive way and kind of let go of these old ways of that's keeping people down and keeping people away from coming out of the broom closet. Make sure you follow her on her Instagram is Ashley Michelle underscore 90 day. And just, follow her on all her things. Um, that on TikTok, I have it linked here for you in the description. If you are listening to this, then it will be on linked on my Instagram. If you're watching this on my YouTube, I will also put that in the description. I thank you all so much for joining me on this special episode. I love to have people on that I feel like I go, you know what, that person has something to say. And that person has something to say to the world. She's put herself out there. It is not easy at all to put yourself out there in the way that she did. And I could tell as a reader that she was putting herself out there in this very ballsy way of like, this is who I am, this is what I do, what of it? And you have to do that in anything in life, actually. Anything that you're calling to be your own. If you want to live in true in your own skin, it does take you not worrying about if people like you. It's hard. It's not easy. It is a journey. So this is something I feel like we can all learn from it. Go check out all the stuff she does and what she has to offer. She has a variety of different things from tarot to astrology to mentorship as well. Also, you can always check out the things I have. You know where I am. You follow the House Medium on Instagram at the House Medium and Dela Levine on Instagram and all the other platforms. Thank you all so much. Follow yourself, follow no one, listen to your inner voice, and I'll see you soon.